this is Julie with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to wire wrap a spider web and create a really fun pair of spider web and spider earrings. So this will be the finished piece when we're done, and you can see we've wire wrapped the spider web and then we've hung a little spider charm from it and attached an earring hook. Now both sides actually look really cool, and I had a hard time deciding which should be the front and which should be the back. So you can decide, but you see here you can see more of the actual wrappings and like what I'm going to call the spokes, whereas on this side you don't see that as much, but you see the really cool grid-like pattern that emerged. So I'm going to show you how to create this. In terms of the supplies that you're going to need, you're going to need two different gauges of wire. You're going to need a heavier gauge, and I'm using 22 gauge artistic wire, plated wire in black. And then you're going to need a thinner gauge to do your actual wrappings, and I'm using artistic wire gunmetal 26 gauge. You can see they just vary ever so slightly in color. Now you could also do silver if you wanted to do that. You could do whatever color you want. And then for our spider, we have a little sterling silver charm. And then to match the sterling of the charm, I'm using a sterling silver hook as well, but you could do plated if you wanted to. Then in terms of tools, you're going to need a ruler to measure your wire, a pair of wire looping pliers, and you'll notice something's a little different with these. I've actually covered the concave tip in painter's tape, and that's so that it doesn't scratch the plated wire. Plated wire is, I want to say is easily scratched, but it can scratch if you are using a tool such as this. And so I went ahead and I covered it in painter's tape. And then you're going to need a pair of cutters and a chain nose plier. Let me show you how to do this. We're going to start by measuring out 3 pieces of the heavier gauge wire, 4 inches long each. There's 1, 2, and then 3. And you don't have to be exact. Make sure that they're at least 4 inches, but this is not the type of project where you need it to be right on the nose. So we are actually done with the heavier gauge wire. And now we're going to need 50 inches of the 26 gauge wire. So this is a 15-inch ruler. So we got 15 inches, 30 inches, 45 inches, and 50. So that is all the wire we're going to need for this project. So you can see you have quite a bit left over, and I've actually already created this one out of these spools as well. You can make a lot of spider webs, or you can make them much bigger if you wanted to. Let's make the spider web. So you're going to grab your 3 pieces of cut wire, and you're going to hold them so that their tips are even. And then you're going to find the middle point, and you can just eyeball this. You can measure it if you want, but it also works to eyeball it. Then you're going to take your long length of wire and hold it perpendicular to your short lengths, like so. And you want to have a tail of anywhere between maybe 3/4 of an inch and an inch, just enough to really hold on to. And then we're going to wrap the long wire around our short wires. We're going to create a band here. So we're just connecting them together. And I'm going to do 4 wraps. You see I'm just holding my short wires in place, and I'm just wrapping the wire around it. Okay, so now this is what we have. They're banded together. I'm going to now cut off the little short tail. I just needed enough to hold on to. There we go. And now take your wires, and I'm going to call these spokes because that's the easiest way for me to refer to them. And we're going to spread them out. So take one, spread it to the left, and take a second one and spread it to the right, and then have one going straight up. Now repeat that step on the bottom. So 1 out to the left, 1 out to the right, and 1 straight. So we've got 6 spokes now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our long wire, and we're going to do an over-under method here. So we're going to go under a spoke, over a spoke, and you see I'm using my fingernail to push the wire down towards the middle. Now under and rotate, and I'm keeping this wire pretty stationary, and I'm rotating the little spokes, the smaller pieces of wire. So under, over, over, under, over, under. Try to pull this as tight as you can without forcing these wires to bend. So over, and when I say under, I'm just going behind the wire. When I say over, I'm going on top of the wire. Okay, so then under. Okay, and I've done that for 2 full rounds. You see I've got 2 wires here. Now go back, make sure your wires are sticking out straight. Okay, so I pulled one of my wires out. I'm just going to push it back in. At this stage, it can be a little bit slippery. Just want to work with them. Okay, now we're going to start wrapping them so they won't pull out. So you see how the wire is coming under? At this point, we're going to wire wrap around this spoke. So I'm going to take this wire, it's coming from behind, under, wrap it around, and push it down with my fingernail towards the base, towards that center. So rotate. Now we're going to wrap this spoke. So it's coming from under, go around it, and push down. Straighten these as need be. So under, wrap it around, and push it down. Rotate. So you're stretching this wire across. Wrap it around, push it down. I'm just going to continue doing this until I actually run out of wire. So I'm going to do quite a bit here on camera so you can really see it develop. And a couple things you want to take note of. Stretch these out, make sure they're straight, and also try to keep this pretty flat. These have a tendency of popping up, so try to keep these as flat and even as you can. Under, around, push down with your fingernail, pull it tight, stretch it to the next one. Just keep going. Now, one thing I do want to note is if you are doing this and the little cut piece of wire is poking you at all as you're going, carefully just take your chain nose plier, and at this stage just press that rough end into your wrappings. Don't press too hard because you don't want to mar your plaited wire, but you can go ahead and tuck that little end in. You can see the web is starting to develop. We're starting to get that look of these web lines. If anyone knows the technical term for that, please comment on this video because I don't know the technical term for these parts of the web or the actual webbing. But I'm calling it spokes and web lines. I think it conveys the idea good enough. So again, just under, wrap around, use your nail to try to form it and push it down towards the middle. And I'm just rotating the actual web itself versus the long length of wire. Let me show you what we've got so far. And you can see that this is actually going to be the back side of my web. And that's going to be the front. But of course you can do whatever you like. Stretch these guys out. Okay, I want to show you a side profile so you can see what it's looking like from the side. And I am trying to flatten this as I go by pinching it together. You see the front and the back. And then we're just going to keep going. So this might not be the most entertaining thing to see on a video because it is just repetitive, but it does make it actually pretty nice and easy and relatively quick for a wire wrapping project. You can really see that this web is starting to develop now too. Okay, one more arch here. Okay, so now we've got not quite enough to do one more. We could stretch it, but I'm not going to worry about it. So when you get to the point where you basically run out of wire, go ahead, and we just made our wrap as if we were going to go to the next spoke. Wrap it a good 2-3 times around this one, and then trim it with your cutters. And that was a nice tight trim, so I don't need to tuck that wire. So here's our web so far. And now we need to go ahead and trim the spokes. So I've got my wire looping pliers, and like I mentioned earlier, I did cover them in painter's tape to prevent some scratching or potential scratching. And I'm going to start by making a wrapped wire loop up at the top that will connect our earring hook to. So I'm going to go ahead, basically squeeze the wire looping pliers with the wire inside of it. They're resting just above my other wraps, and that's what that looks like. So it did half the work for me. And then pull the wire down, rotate your pliers up to the top, and then take this piece of wire and wrap it around several times. And this is a really nice soft wire to work with. So trim that and tuck in your tail. There we go. And now I'm going to finish off these ends. I'm going to hang my spider from this one. So I'm just going to take my wire looping plier and I'm going to create a simple wire loop on each of the spokes just to finish it off. So right above the last wrapping, I'm just creating a loop. And I'm just going to trim that. And then tidy it up and go to the next one. You could create wrapped wire loops at this stage too if you wanted to. I think the simple wire loop is a little bit less intrusive, so it blends a little bit more because there's less happening. But if you want to do a wrapped wire loop, go for it. And trim that guy up a little bit. There we go. Okay, and now go back with your chain nose and just make sure that all your loops are nice and straight and even. So we've got one more to do, and that's the one we're going to hang our spider from. So before we go any further, I'm going to take off the jump ring that comes with the spider because I don't want to use it. It's a little big and clunky for this project. There we go. Now I thought it could be fun actually to hang the spider a little bit lower instead of up top here, just so it looks like in this pair of earrings one is actually up towards the web and then one is hanging down below. So I don't want it quite this long, but I'm going to attempt to do this with it that long. So I'm going to go ahead and create a loop. And actually, I want this loop to be a little bit bigger so it can go through the hole that's part of the charm. Okay, so I've got my loop. Let me open it up and hang on my spider. and close it back up. Yeah, I think that's actually really fun. And so now I'm going to put on the earring hook. So it has a loop at its base that we're going to open up just like a jump ring. And we're going to slide it onto that wrapped wire loop up top. And close it. And we now have a really fun pair of spiderweb earrings with sterling silver spiders hanging from them. You can find all the supplies for this project as well as other videos and projects similar to this one at Beadaholique.com.